Having heard the variety of speakers this morning, my personal talk has changed 7.5 times. That's not so important because I went to Kailua High School. Those are my academic credentials. Very complete. I do want you just for a moment to turn to someone next to you and tell them something you really enjoy. Turn to someone next to you right now and tell them what one thing you really enjoy. Thank you. I know that exercise can go on for a while. The point of the exercise is to reflect on our hopes and our dreams as it connects to our sense of being a whole person with a whole future and limitless possibilities. I think in this culture, in the Western culture especially, there is not an acceptance of terminal illness. There's not an acceptance of a process of dying, and that death is something that we fear greatly. I want to just say a couple of things about hospice care. To start with, hospice is not a location so much as it is a service. Sometimes we do have inpatient units for people that have particular needs, but more often, hospice is the service of a team that's dedicated to going into the person's home who has a terminal illness. That team is led primarily by the nurse case manager. There is a medical social worker who's clinically trained to work with emotional and spiritual concerns. We have our spiritual counselors, our chaplains. Perhaps most important, we have our home health aides who are geniuses in direct hands-on body care. Something that we are not normally used to as we become adults. It's difficult for us to remember that when a child is born, he or she cares for no personal concerns. They are a mess. You have to feed them, and part of the food gets in their mouths. You have to clean their bottoms. You have to relate to activity that's endless, or sometimes not enough activity. And at the same time, that's not so untrue when you and I become ill. We develop an illness or a chronic condition that limits what we talk about as self-care. And the goals of hospice care are to bring hope, to reduce fears, and make the type of connection that says, this part of your life counts. This part of your life has meaning, and we're here as a team to discover with you, what is this meaning? How do we live this life most fully? I had a wonderful woman who worked in an oncologist's office for 27 years, who was shocked when her mother came on the hospice service, because she came into the environment where her son's children were up in grandmother's arms. Grandmother had advanced dementia, but these two little girls were cuddling in her arms, loving her. The people around were singing, playing music, and she started weeping. And I was sitting with the group and I asked her, tell me, Auntie, why are you weeping? And she said, all these years in my oncology practice, I thought hospice was where you just go and get enough morphine until they kill you. Now that's blatant, but not far from the truth for some, because the thought about hospice does mean a terminal prognosis, or it does mean comfort care only. So I just wanted to give you that little bit of a background. I have been doing palliative medicine and hospice care for the past 4 years, a little bit longer. Now, the real story is about the learning of Dr. Geoff. How did I come to understand hospice care? And I'm going to tell you a story through a patient example. She and her family have given me the opportunity to talk about this example, and some of you will know her. Within a very short period of time of my becoming the medical director of Hospice Hawaii, I was asked by a very concerned nurse to go out and meet a woman. I'm trying to think if it was Waipahu. Kaiohale boys don't know, it's just out there. It wasn't. So I went out to the home, and the reason the nurse was concerned is this woman is not taking any pain medicines. She has pain. What's wrong with her? You have to come and talk to her. So we went out to the home. Her name was Stella. And we knocked on the door. And as you open the door, the first thing you experience is a beautiful flower arrangement. The moment I arrived, with this kind of intensity, doctor to the rescue, the doctor was rescued at the front door. I removed my shoes, I walked into the home to the right, and there was this beautiful woman. Her actual age, according to my research, was in the mid-80s. The age of the human being in front of me was in her 60s, with a bright light in her eyes. And she looked up at me and she said, "Oh, you are Dr. Geoff. Welcome." She says, "I can stand up, but I have to sit down right away. So I'm not going to stand up. You please sit down." So I sat down, and over the next hour, Stella gave me the opportunity to have insight into some of my habits that were about acute care, saving people, that were about medications are the answers to suffering, whether it's pain or nausea and vomiting, whether it's other kinds of suffering. And I was with a woman who I genuinely experienced as being not just okay, but realizing her stomach cancer was an important part of her life. And that she could relate to me as in, "Don't worry, Dr. Geoff. I will help you through this." Within minutes of sitting down, she explained Okada purifying therapy. She told me that was the most important part of her daily regimen, and that I was a little late because practitioners had already been there that morning, as they had come most mornings, perhaps every morning, and that her husband was down in the backyard, and then she giggled, not really the backyard, across the backyard into state land, growing vegetables. She helped me understand that she felt this was a natural process. She did not want medications. She asked me if I would just please sit upright and close my eyes. And she then gave me OPT. The nurse is bewildered. So this is happening after a few minutes. She said, "Thank you," and I opened my eyes, and she made it clear that she could not benefit from Okada purifying therapy herself if she did not pass it on to others. If she wasn't the person that was transitioning or allowing that energy through her to give to others, she could not benefit as fully as she wanted to. As I'm leaving the home, I meet her beloved spouse, and he gives me a bag with fresh vegetables in it. I am completely confused. I failed with the medicine conversation. I didn't even examine her. She treated me, and I got local produce on the way out. And art therapy on the way in. And if she could have provided a tea ceremony, she would have. I want to move fast forward now because I had the chance to go and see her. Sometimes you go out of your way to go and see people because you know that you're learning something, that you're incorporating something. And for me, Stella embodied the physical, the spiritual, the emotional. She had a bright intellect, but an amazing attitude to go with that. At one point, she got into serious trouble. She did have a very aggressive cancer. We thought her prognosis would be relatively short. She got into trouble with pain. She got into trouble with what we call a partial small bowel obstruction or an upper bowel obstruction. And we went in to try to provide the medications. I had long ago given up helping her understand that opioid medications were just poppies in a different form. She was having none of it. No pain medicines, not Tylenol, nothing. So we went in and I examined her. She was tender, she was distended, she was not feeling herself. She had what we call a little bit of hypoactive delirium. She would accept doing an enema with natural products. We went ahead and did the enema. I really felt that her course would be short. Over the next days to a week or so, I had a conversation with her daughter, with her husband, with Stella herself. We talked that through, and we left, having assisted with this bowel preparation. She did not have an immediate response, and the nurse case manager that was working with me left town the next day for a brief vacation. So about 4 or 5 days later, with a little bit of fear, because I hadn't heard anything about Stella, I called, fully expecting to speak with her spouse, fully expecting to know that she had declined further or perhaps was closer to the end of her life. The person that answered the phone had this bright, cheery voice. I said, hello, may I speak to Mr. So-and-so? She said, Dr. Geoff, this is Stella. And I was shocked. And I said, Stella, did the bowel treatment help you? She said, oh, no. She said, but about 2 hours later, I threw up some blood. And that was the poison. Thinking back through the OPT points and where the toxins are stored. And she says, now I'm eating again. I'm eating fruit. I'm eating miso soup. I'm eating vegetables. And she continued to live for another really active and full 5 months. She inspired me to understand that real meaning and value lives in the life of the person who is ill. And my job is to understand that deeply, to alter my notion of what's supposed to take place, and to give up my preconditions in the benefit and service of another human being. It is a very great privilege to work with people who are facing the end of life, because once the shock of my plans have to change, and believe me, that is a huge trauma for many people. My plans have to change. At that moment, the degree to which there can be a sense of acceptance, and it's you, the people in this room, the family members, the friends, the people with MOA, the people in churches, the people who are caregivers with a deeper understanding, if we can come together to say, a moment of new creativity, a moment of design. If with our medications we can decrease pain, that allows for the design to be more robust. If we can help symptoms, and a person is open to being helped that way, we win in terms of greater vitality, better sleep, easier nutrition, easier access to the things about our loved ones that are important, our sharing of love, our forgiveness that may need to be given, our sense of being forgiven, our sense of gratitude. I'm honored to be with you in the context of end-of-life care. What I'm experiencing here today is that there is no beginning of life care, there's no end of life care in the talks that I've heard this morning. It's today's care right now. What makes you happy? Thank you.